they came to Excel and said, this is what we will make. And they said, इस पे पैसा नहीं मिलेगा.
It wasn't like a science fiction. I'm really thrilled and excited to be back hosting this amazing journey of conversations. And I'm even more thrilled because a lot of time we have spent talking to brands that touches our lives very openly. We've spoken to founders of Swiggy and Taxi for sure and so many others. But today's story is interesting for more reasons than one. First is we have Priyank Swarup, a backer of some of the best known B2B marketplaces who quietly shape our lives and work. Priyank.
Thank you.
Welcome here. And Amrit, who's the co-founder of Zetwerk. Zetwerk, I was just talking to you, Amrit and Priyank, and I'll be honest, I'm stumped. I walked in thinking this is a B2B, boring, I'm sorry, that's how consumers would think about it. But the amount of action I can smell is amazing. So welcome to this conversation, Amrit.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Great.
Yeah.
So why don't we kick this off, Amrit, by looking at the why of Zetwerk.
Yeah.
And everybody has a crazy backstory.
Yeah.
Let's see if it's crazier than what we have heard so far.
Yeah. No, I mean, in my personal case, like I was actually in the US, and my first job was with this company called ITC, which, of course, is a large consumer brand in India. But within that ITC also I was in the B2B business, which for all of their front-end consumer brands, we used to source the underlying commodities. When I joined, I was basically fresh out of college, and my first job there was to build a new factory for them. So they introduced me to a plot in Mysore, which is barren land, and I was part of a team of 10 people. And over 2 years, we built a lot of buildings, bought a lot of machines, hired 1,000 people, built a lot of software. And in a very weird way, it was very entrepreneurial. Though I was in a large company setup, we kind of built something from nothing, and we had a lot of freedom to make these decisions. And I really fell in love with manufacturing for the first time back then. And I was literally fresh out of college. I didn't really know much about business, about anything. And I mean, I did a lot of things after I said I spent some time in the US also with business school and with McKinsey. But when I came back to India, and I kind of went back to my roots, and when we were looking to start a company, it was important that it was something to do with the problem we understood well as founders. Though it is, in your words, some people have called it unsexy, etc. But it was something we understood well. It was something we found very exciting, and my co-founder also, his family business was into manufacturing. So it felt like not a very unknown alien universe when we started the business.
Wow. Let me bring you here,
Yeah.
Priyank. Before we jump into deeper 0 to 1 story here, can you go back to your earliest memories of Zetwerk? And
Sure.
What did you see? I mean, take us through your camera.
Oh yeah, so Zetwerk, I mean, I got to know about Zetwerk because Anand, my partner, he introduced me to Zetwerk, saying that Rajesh Yabaji of BlackBuck had invested, the angel in Zetwerk, and said, look at the company, they're doing well.
He was here a few days ago. That chair.
Yeah. So Yabaji introduced basically Axel, and I got introduced to Amrit and Srinath at that time. And then this was the first meeting I had with them. I just thought, okay, there is something interesting. So by that time, I had a B2B thesis. I want to look at companies which are doing making margins. Founders understand what working capital is. They understand the industry they're going after. Why are they going after? So for me, it was a check of all the boxes. All the boxes got checked. Okay, this is great and brilliant. And so that's how we met. And the rush or amazing thing there is what my daughter was born just 1 week before I met Zetwerk founders, I think. So I was in a hurry before I go on paternity leave, I have to...
It worked out well.
It worked out well. I credit my daughter for bringing all the luck there. So it was very good from that perspective. But yeah, that's how we met.
Yeah, at this space, I mean, I'm sure she will pick up one of the products from Zetwerk. I mean, I was amazed when you talked about a boat and John. What an amazing story. But let's go back to the backstory again, Amrit, and let's go deeper into 0 to 1.
Yeah.
The questions that we discover from founders, especially first time and those building, are a mix of things. One is, so simple things like test bed. How do you decide where to test it or launch it or do it?
Yeah.
And what are the learnings there? And also anything else from, in 0 to 1 journey at Zetwerk that we can unlock. And Prang, feel free to jump in with your lens anytime.
Yeah, sure.
No, in fact, when we started the business, we wanted to build software. Again, it came back because I'd just come back from the US. Software was the thing. Everyone wanted to build a SaaS company. And we felt that, attacking the problem we liked the industry and we were somewhat agnostic to what we wanted to build. We thought we'll build software for people like me at ITC who were managing large procurement for, building new infrastructure, etc. I was at one point managing almost 200-300 crore spend, all on Google Sheets, hundreds of vendors. We just felt that it could be done better. That was the simple idea. We actually raised our seed round basis that thought that we'll build a SaaS business. We went to our customers saying, we are looking to build this, and most of the customers were very excited, and that actually gave us a lot of energy. That in fact, I met one senior vice president at L&T. He showed me. We coincidentally got a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning with him, and he showed me his inbox at 9 a.m. There were 100 emails from suppliers. And he said, can it solve this problem? I said, yes, that is exactly the problem we are trying to solve. Right? So we got very excited that, this is not theoretical. Then we raised capital, we built the software.
They came to Excel and said, this is what we will make. And they said, "Dispe paisa nahi milega." So we didn't give them money for the first time. We didn't invest in the seed round. So we built the software. It took us like a couple of months and we went back to the same customers. Look, this is exactly what you wanted and this is exactly what we have built. And the same person, we had a very different response. Like, oh, this is great, but I'm not the decision maker. I can introduce you to my IT department, and I'll put in a good word. That is.
And you have built a product based on that good word.
Yeah, and in some cases, like in some of these multinational companies, they're like, oh, I don't even make these software decisions in India. They all happen in US. They all happen in Switzerland. I can facilitate a meeting for you. And that's when we realized, okay, there's a black hole in the current format, right? Like and it'll just take longer to build the business this way. The feedback loops are much smaller. Like, by the time you get to market and then iterate, because startup journey is all iteration. You're never perfect on day one. And we could have still pursued, but it felt like not a great fit for us personally, as founders. We didn't feel that we had that kind of patience, both me and my co-founder.
How quickly did you come to that decision? I'm very curious.
I mean, we got a seed term sheet in like April. Our round should have closed in August, but we had pivoted in July itself, before the round closed. Before we had received money from our investors. So we went back to them saying, look, we're changing the business, but we have always operated like that. We are very first principles. We just don't want to.
I think feedback loop has been his operating word. Any new business, even now at scale, they start. Most of the time, he keeps on, Amrit and Srinath, they keep on talking about feedback loop. If you don't get feedback from the customers very quickly, then something is wrong. Right? Or they want to see the feedback so that they understand it's working.
Yeah, it's not wrong, but it's just about fit. There are certain founders and we admire them, like who can have that, they can wait 2 years to build a perfect product. Figma is a great example.
Yes.
And more power to, such people. It's just, we were not those people. It's just that we realized that, we need to know whether we are going in the right direction faster. What happened was when we were talking to these customers, they were saying all these things which are not great to hear, but they were also saying, can I use your software to discover more vendors? I'm looking for getting a product made. Finding vendors is challenging. Does your software have this feature? They were asking in a more curiosity way, and that was when we kind of had this aha moment. Okay, this is a transaction-based business. Maybe faster to market than a change management business, which is a software business.
Yes.
And some of the other things we heard from customers were also like, oh, a lot of companies in India have in-house IT teams. Like, oh, why can't I build it myself? So whereas when you're solving for transaction value, it is a more immediate pain point. It is something the customer is struggling with today, and it is very easy to sell within their organizations. So that's when we pivoted the business in July 2018, and we got our first customer in like a month, and we went from like 1 crore a month business to 10 crores a month in like 6 months.
Wow.
And that's around the time when we met Priyank.
Yeah.
So clearly something was working, and again, a lot of things we had still not fully understood, solved, etc., which we have done that over the years. But fundamentally, the business is similar to what it was in during our Series A. That we are working with companies who want to get products made. We partner with these companies at the design phase. They give us design files, and our promise is we will get that design converted into a physical product that you can touch and feel. And we do it by working with third-party manufacturers and contractors. The role we end up playing as a business starts with matchmaking, gets into pricing, and then ultimately fulfillment. Each of them are large enough problems, and the ecosystem is broken in many ways today, and which is why a company like us is very relevant. Yeah.
Wow. And this is fascinating. Also, where all can you go at that point in time? You can actually freak out, right? Because it is broken in so many places.
Yeah.
So to both of you, Priyank and Amrit, right? How did that happen? I mean, which problems did you pick and why? Because building a marketplace, a lot of time, it can be existential. You can actually get consumed in that.
Yeah. No, I mean, so we've been around for 4.5 years. First 2 years, we were doing a single category. Today, we are in around 10 plus categories. First 2 years, we were doing a single category. We wanted, a little bit of focus. We wanted to go deeper into the problem. We also didn't fully understand where else this could be applied at that point in time. So the product is called steel fabrication. It is actually there all around us. Like if you notice a electricity pylon which has electricity, to a staircase which is metal, to a door. These are all steel fabricated products. If you have been to IKEA, it's a whole metal building.
Yes.
That's a steel fabricated product. So it's there all around us. It is custom in nature. You can't go to a shop and buy a door. You have to give some specifications that I wanted certain dimensions, certain color, etc. And then somebody will buy the underlying raw material and get it made. But at the same time, it's not a very complex product. So it is custom, but not complex. So that was the sweet spot for us, where in a manufacturing universe, the 3 problems the customer wants to solve is cost, quality, and time. I want the product made in budget. I want it made as quickly as possible, and I want quality to be perfect. In the custom, not complex segment, people were okay with quality not being the most important thing they cared about. The most important thing they cared about was time. If you've heard of these things in India, nothing happens on time. It's generally and it's very common. Like for the customer, if they would give a order and they want the product in 30 days, it was very common for them to discover on the 30th day the supplier has not even started, because the supplier was doing something else. He had a different order. He went to a friend's wedding. You'll hear all kinds of excuses in India, right? So time was a big problem. There are 2 problems with time. One is it doesn't happen on time. Second is I have no visibility. It's a complete black box. Once I've given an order and I expect a 30-day cycle, in that 30-day cycle I have no information at all. So we attacked these 2 problems. So one is, from day one, we built a dashboard, software dashboard, which a customer can log in and see the real-time status at any given point in time. That 20% of my order is manufactured. Here is a photograph from the supplier's factory. My next shipment is happening 7 days from now. A lot of depth of information, which if the customer wanted to get it themselves, they would have to make 100 phone calls. And second is we are also on time. Like our on-time matrices are 70-80%, which to compare it to the industry would be 30-40%.
Yeah.
Priyank, we talked about this,
right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to comment on one thing. It was interestingly, we had given a term sheet to them, and I attended a board meeting. By the time the money had not gone in, we had not signed the final details. And in that board meeting, it was so surprising. It was the first B2B marketplace company I had met. We discussed like, I think half an hour to 45 minutes, we just discussed technology in the company.
Wow.
And that is a facet which, when we had met them, was not very clear at that time, right? But I was like, wow, there's a lot of focus on solving the technology part of it. Because otherwise, you can just pick up the phone, start calling suppliers, buyers, doing everything on Google Sheets, spreadsheets, right? So that was the thing which stood out for me for the first board meeting I attended, I remember. And
I also remember you had spoken to some experts.
You did?
So I tell you. So
He didn't trust you.
No, of course. So as a VC, you have to obviously go and so before issuing the term sheet, we obviously met the team. We brought them in. They met the entire partnership. Partnership debated and discussed. And the most obvious question was, ki custom manufacturing karenge. So how can it scale? Like most marketplaces are built on cookie cutter products. You buy a shoe, it's the same shoe anywhere and everywhere. Customers knows what they're buying. There's no judgment of quality or anything. So how much can this custom manufacturing actually scale? It was a big question. And it just sounded very counterintuitive for a VC, which when you think it's not going to scale. So that was one big debate which happened. Second big debate what happened, so I called up all my friends who were working in L&T and Suzlon and all these other industries, energy industry, power, which I could know, and I called them up and said, there's this company Zetwerk, they're going to become a vendor to you, supplier to you, will you take the services? And they're like, maybe we will give them some small job work which we can't get it done, but I don't see why I'll get a new vendor for everything, core products. So we used to think in categories of A class, B class, C class. So they will say C class ke andar maybe I'll give them some work if I can't find a vendor. So the feeling I got from them was that they were not very attuned to and I called up all the McKinsey consultants and other AT Kearney consultants and other guys, and I asked them the same question. So and they were also like, we are not very sure if this will work or not. But I really liked the founders and I really liked the way they were thinking about it.
One question we got from the Priyank and his team was that, can you make a list of 100 companies who could potentially be customers for you? And we actually sat down and thought about, okay, who these 100 companies would. We made an Excel.
उससे पहले नहीं सोचा था.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a science fiction question.
No, when you're in the
building the business,
grinds of the business, sometimes these questions actually help. They help you reflect and pause. But the question itself was interesting because the number was, can you even think of 100? Today we work with maybe 2,000 odd customers, and it was. Ambitions have grown over time is one part of it. We started off with a purely India-focused business. Today we do almost 25% of our revenues come from outside India. We started with a single category, which was steel fabrication. Today we're in 10 plus categories. And all of these things are also not very visible to us. So those 100 lists you got was India companies and steel fabrication.
And we made an investment case that this company will do steel fabrication and they'll become a big company.
Wow. So you have done your early pivot.
Yeah.
You have survived all these questions and lists that you have made through. And now you're thinking of where can you take this and not just in terms of category, but even as an enterprise or a company, the whole scale question. Can we now move into that phase and talk about also, Priyank, some of the metrics? I remember, the time, what was that?
OTIF, on time in full. Yeah.
So at what point in time in a B2B marketplace especially, it should start kicking in or you should start looking at it. But Amrit, to switch to you first, what was the tipping point for you in that sense where you said, okay, scale happens now?
We have been a business that has grown every month for pretty much their entire existence. And then the question became, what is the appropriate amount of growth? And what we don't realize is growth is actually an output metric. It is you've done a lot of hard work and that has resulted in revenue and others. So there are a lot of lead indicators which translate into that. Some of the things we measure is, does the customer come back? Is it a one-off? Because custom order, it is typically a one-off requirement. I'm doing some new project for which I need some. Think of it like buying a home. You don't buy a home every day.
No.
But that same customer has different requirements in different parts of the business. So they come back through that channel. So one of the things we measure a lot is repeat. Does the customer keep coming back, or is it a one-off requirement? Ultimately, over time, we want to work with repeat customers. And today, almost 80-85% of our revenue comes from repeat customers every given month. Yeah. So scale, if you solve for these input metrics, scale is a reflection of that, versus looking at, okay, I need to scale and then solve from that point backwards. We reverse the script a little bit. Then these are the key drivers of the business. And if we focus on those things, then growth will automatically happen.
But at the nut and bolt level, scale can be an outcome of these things that you are getting right.
Yeah.
What about team? What about other inputs beyond, the organically that you are doing some things? But what does it mean for org building or team? Also pick some of your favorite hiring mistakes if you can.
So basically, we have had a strong point of view around hiring. The first 100 people in some way self-assembled. These are people we knew, brought in people they knew. A lot of our company, in fact, if I had to guess, maybe 5% of our company even at one point of time was from ITC, single org. These are people, we had worked with before in some capacity. And they had brought in people they knew and things like that. In fact, Blackbuck also, a lot of alumni are from Blackbuck. Two things. One is, we didn't want to make, we wanted to be certain about people we brought into the company. We knew what they were good at and what was the problem that they wanted to solve. The second thing we did very consciously, and this is something we learned from other companies, is that we decentralized the org a lot. So when we moved from one category to 10, we had each category work somewhat independently. There were some parts which were common, like the central support functions, product and tech, and etc. But sales, for example, every category did their own sales. And what that allowed the org was a lot of speed. There was a little bit of redundancy, I'm sure. We could have maybe optimized a little bit on cost here and there, but the speed benefit the org got by just that one single decision, trumped all the other downsides that could have come with that. Of course, today we are back after 2 years. We're now going back to that. We're trying to centralize a few more functions, from, so that we don't make the same mistakes twice. But generally speaking, we optimize the org for speed. That how and what that meant also is that the founders needed to step away a little bit from decision making. And when you're decentralizing it, you can't half-heart it. You're having people who are building these categories. You need to be aligned on what exactly we are building. These are some of the metrics we care about. You can't get into the how also. We are very hands-on as founders generally, and first 2 years we were extremely hands-on because we did everything by ourselves. And then when we brought in more people, we had to learn how to step back a little bit and see people make some of the mistakes we had made also. Unfortunately, that was again downside of that. But again, the learning curve of the org was faster. The agility of the org was faster. It really worked for us.
What are some of those mistakes? Sorry.
I was going to ask one question, which was a lot of B2B founders have this thing, let's say I am from computer science background, a consultant, and so they try objectively, maybe I should have more industry experts inside my organization, right? So did you guys go through that curve?
Yeah, that was, today we have done it well. Today almost like one of the strong elements of our culture is we marry a software engineering culture with a technocrat culture. These are people who understand the nuts and bolts of how to make items, products, and then we operationalize and make it more standardized through software. But the first 2 years, we tried to get a lot of people from the industry. People from GE, from Siemens, from all these big manufacturing powerhouses. That didn't work as well. Primarily from a cultural aspect, and I would attribute it to both sides. The company was too small to absorb some of the high-level thinking that they brought in, and at the same time, because the general focus was speed, the org did feel a little chaotic, to an outsider. That some of these decisions we take to somebody who's kind of seen a very different world for 10 plus years can in fact seem careless also. But we were completely okay with that because we were just optimizing for something different. We were optimizing for, getting to a certain scale as quickly as possible. And we were okay with making mistakes as long as we make fewer and fewer mistakes over a period of time, right? Whereas manufacturing tends to be a very perfectionist culture.
Yes.
The quality, these things are
TQM and all of that.
these things are very important. So people who spend a lot of time in the industry over a period of time tend to become a little bit more perfectionist. And we're also getting there today. I would say today, generally speaking, our tolerance for as a company towards making mistakes is reducing. We don't want to make the same mistakes we made two years ago. And what that will happen, the trade-off of that will be a little bit of compromise on speed. But it is important to do it at the right stages of the company building journey.
And Amrit, the ones who kind of survived the so-called culture clash, what were some of the key attributes in those people? Because I think in company building, it goes a long way, right?
Yeah. No, so it was something we've been trying to reflect, and I mean I think the number one thing comes down to this whole fixed mindset versus growth mindset. A lot of folks have fixed mindset is basically this is how it is, and दुनिया ऐसा ही चलता है, or some version of that, right? Like this is how the world works. Whereas there are some people who just look at it very first principles. Yeah. And often those people are outsiders. We are also outsiders. So into the industry, while we had some empathy for the problem statement, but we have not been running factories for 10 plus years, right? So as outsiders, we looked at the problem from a fresh slate. And we were not comfortable with the status quo. Status quo was, things happen on time 30% of the time. And if you look at this industry, they had just normalized that behavior. So what it would mean is the customer would say 30 days, I want product. But mentally they would know that, if it comes in 60 days also, I'm happy. That is just how they have normalized this. But why should that be the case? Why should we accept 60 versus 30 as an example? Similar things on quality. Like I remember one customer, I can't name them. It's a retailer. They wanted to launch a private label of a new product. And they gave us, these are the technical specifications I want the product to comply with. And we just said, okay, we'll do it. We made it exactly as per the specification they had given us. And at the price point they had asked us. And it turned out to be like a very high quality product in that category. And the customer was very surprised. How is the quality of this product so much better than what is there in the market? And the answer was, before we had done it, the industry status quo was people skimmed at the margins. If the product said 10 millimeter dimension, they would make 9.5, and all these small decisions compounded in terms of overall quality of the product being less than ideal. We had no clue that this is what industry does. They skimp at the margins. So we made it exactly as per spec. And what happened was a product which was like just 5x better than what was there in the market. We got it done at the supplier's factory. At that time, there was word spread in the market, just generally speaking, and there were lines outside the factory. People were just lining up to buy it directly from the factory because they had heard that product quality is better, but price is same.
Wow.
So sometimes just being naive and being outsiders does help, and you don't get corrupted by the status quo.
Yeah. And just going deeper into the B2B marketplace building journey side, there are two things that come to my mind, and this also stems from our conversations earlier, Priyank, right? One is when you're building it, how do you manage risk? Or at what point in time you start thinking about risk in terms of, creditors?
Is the customer not paying you, or supplier is not doing their work properly? Things, right?
And how do you build for it in that sense? And Priyank, I would also love to know more about the whole OTIF, a little sense making there.
Yeah, sure. So what Amrit was saying was essentially OTIF. The high quality on time, in full, so basically it's very simple. Give the customer what he wants in the price point he wants at the right time, right? So that's all, right? And that what Amrit was saying is 30% in the market today. And I think actually Zetwerk has done a lot of work with suppliers to improve OTIF of their own suppliers. The same supplier who was working at 30% might now be working at 80-90%, because Zetwerk has given them how to manage projects, technology. Maybe we can talk about that also.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with a lot of software. Like, for example, when you're saying that a product takes 30 days to make, it is not like, suddenly there is zero and then overnight it becomes a full product. It goes through a manufacturing journey.
Yes.
There are 10 steps in that. Each step takes, let's say, 3 days. And they're typically serial in nature. You can't do step 5 before you've done step 4. So one is understanding that journey. So what we do is we digitize recipes. So once we get a product, we say, okay, this has to go through this 10-step process for it to convert from a design to a product we can touch. And for each step, we know this is how much time it should take. Step 1 should take 3 days, step 2 should take 5 days, etc. And then you track against that. Has step 1 actually happened in 3 days? Has step 1 actually happened in 5 days? You allow for some variance, that okay, instead of 5 it can be 8 or 10. But if it goes above that variance, that means something has gone wrong somewhere. We don't know what exactly it is. Something has gone wrong, either at the supplier's end or somewhere else. You understand what that is, and then you solve for that. For example, one of the things we discovered was 80% of the delays happen in step 1 itself, which is the supplier has to buy the raw material before they can convert it into a finished product. In case of a steel fabrication, they have to buy steel. Unless they buy steel, they can't do anything else, right? And why do delays happen there? Because they're waiting for the best price to buy steel at. A supplier will trade time for money. He will wait another 10 days if he can get steel at 0.5% less, because that's directly his bottom line. In general, in India, people trade money for time. But it was affecting the customer experience. And so hence, one of the business lines we launched is we actually help our suppliers buy commodities in like basically not 10 days, but in like a day.
So you solved for it.
We solved for it. And that is what we mean by we're very first principles that way. So it was required to be solved for you to meet your North Star of OTIF or other metrics. And that's one example. And then you institutionalize all of this through software. That this is for every time we get a similar type of product, this is the journey it will go time and again. We do slightly different things if it's a new customer versus a repeat customer. New customers will get the best VIP treatment, because we have often seen, again from our data, that if the first time experience with a customer is high, they tend to become lifetime customers forever. So they get the best suppliers, they get the best project managers. All of these things, you have to be really mindful about the data that your business is generating. There's a lot of noise, of course. And if you're clear what you're optimizing for, and then find patterns towards that.
Can we spend a little time talking about risks? Because in B2B marketplaces, especially, if you don't know when to start thinking about it. And how much should you, you should not overthink it either, because anxiety leads to a lot of issues. But at the same time, it can consume you. It can be existential. So can you talk some lessons there?
So let me set the context first.
Yeah.
So B2B marketplaces have just seen in the last 5 years, they've seen GST getting implemented, significant disruption in supply chain, uncertainty. The demonetization happened again a lot because a lot of the low-end suppliers or suppliers would work on cash, and it got again disrupted. Payments could not be made. And then finally, we had COVID. Our own business, suddenly we were like, so there was a lot of, and the biggest risk that any B2B marketplace suffers is the customer is supposed to pay you after 60 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever, and he doesn't pay you or delays the payments, right? So I think the question is, when did you start thinking about, I need to worry about collections, I need to worry about how much business I'm doing with this one customer, not overexposing myself? How should somebody think about that?
Yeah, I would say they're very important in not just B2B, but any commerce business. It'll show up in some way, like capital getting stuck. Either you can get capital stuck as inventory. You just buy a lot of things hoping that they would sell. In a B2B environment, there's less inventory worries, but you give credit to customers. So there is a worry whether your customer will actually pay you or not. I don't think it's something we should think about at product market fit stage. It can unnecessarily complicate that part of company building. Product market fit is more art than science. That is my view. When the business becomes more a business, at a product market fit, you're just still searching for a product. Once you're converting the product into a business, I think that's when these things are important. I would say we have done two things pretty early. One is this focus on risk, which means that we don't work with everybody who wants to work with us today. Like we reject a lot of customers because we feel that they are not good quality customers to have. We learned this lesson the hard way during COVID, where a lot of our capital got stuck. And today, I would say we reject almost 40-50% of customers in India that they would like to work with us, but we don't work with them because their credit rating is not good. If you look at their balance sheet, it'll say that their payable days are 200 days. That means typically they pay their suppliers after 200 days of getting the product. In fact, India is a great country that way because you can get a lot of this information of private companies through ROC.
Yes.
Yeah, you cannot get this information in the US. So we actually struggle to do credit underwriting there. But in India, all this information is available. You can find out if they've delayed payment to their banks. You can find out if they've not paid their GST returns on time. All this information is pretty easily accessible.
That's fascinating.
And so today we look at all these parameters, saying if one of these or many of these are off, we would rather not work with them. We have enough things to do. The other thing we did was we had a very profitability mindset pretty early. While we were not profitable the first 3 years, but we were very close to break even. And that also is not something you can decide to do overnight. You can't decide to become profitable tomorrow. It will take a journey. It is very much part of the cultural fabric of the company that these are certain transactions I will never do because I know for sure that they will never be profitable. They may show up in your vanity GMV, but they're very low quality revenue. So we have both profitability and risk. I feel are not. They're very cultural. They're culturally embedded into the company. This is a growth at all mindset company, or this is a growth with considering these constraints as a mindset company. And you can't decide to change from one to other overnight. It will take a year. And it's important to build this fabric as early as possible, but definitely not at the seeds or Series A stage.
But risk team, at what point in time you should start thinking about risk team?
No, so the founders have to think about risk. All of these things, right? Like you can't. Yeah, today we have a risk team. We have somebody. I would say we got them full time maybe 9 to 12 months ago. But as founders, we think about risk. That do we understand the transaction we are doing? What are the challenges what are the things that can go wrong in this transaction?
So they didn't have an official risk team, let's say 12 months ago, but every transaction, the founders even 2-3 years ago were thinking of it, should I do business with this person or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it starts with various, like this deal of a certain size, certain people can take a call. As the deal size increases, that correlates with risk. It has a different process that you need to follow. And you can't be hands off about that because you can't, unless you're a person who have done this for 20 years, then you understand these risks very well. But as a first time founder, as a young founder, there is no substitute of doing it by yourself. Yeah.
There is also supplier side risk.
Yes.
So whereas you're working with a bunch of suppliers and you have your own team members sourcing suppliers for you, and because you have your own team members sourcing suppliers, you need to be sure that they don't have any different arrangement. Like they get the supply at the right price and it's transparent to you. So they don't have, I'll let you work with this company.
No, and this is where software is really important because you can't do these things. Like otherwise you're like any other business. There is all this opacity that exists and there's all these culture clashes that exist across these companies. You're becoming like any other company if you follow those processes. So software really helps. The culture of the company, these are things that matter. These things really matter at the end of the day.
Amrit and Priyank both. The other, and this is more on a final note, but a lot of founders also seem to grapple with this question of how do you make suppliers and buyers happy? Happiness is a very philosophical question.
Right.
And it can translate into data, you can look at retention of cohorts and so on. But how both of you, what lens would you apply and how do you keep at it in your experience?
I mean, in our case, it was interesting because if you look at NPS, which is a measure of some of that, ours is a negative NPS industry. From a buyer supplier point of view, customers don't like the suppliers they're working with. Suppliers are also unhappy with the customers for various reasons, and actually that in some way is a decent proxy for whether a business can come in between.
Yes.
Of two people who were transacting with before. A lot of startups eliminate middle layers. That's what they say.
Yeah.
We are actually creating a middle layer, between two people who used to transact with each other before. The reason it works for us is because it was highly negative NPS. Customers didn't like the suppliers didn't like the buyers. And then you understand why that happens. Customers don't like suppliers because of the time issue. I will say 30 days, but I will make it in 60 days. Just unhappy tension, lot of that whole 30 to 60 day period, there's just a lot of tension for the buyer that, is it 30 days, is it 45 days, is it 60 days? Tell me one date, then I will not at least I'll have peace of mind. Right? Supplier is unhappy because once they've shipped the product, they're not sure when they'll get payment from the customer.
Yeah.
The customer has said 30 days, but in India, nobody pays on time. It's just a reality of doing business in India. And there also, if they know it is going to come in, 30 days, he has said, but actually it will be 45 days, then it's still fine. But that it can be anywhere between 30 to 90. It depends on the mood of the customer, right? So, and there are a lot of other challenges in each of these. But broadly speaking, there's distrust. In a way, we're solving for both sides. We are making sure that the customer's expectations, time, quality, cost are met. We're making sure suppliers, they don't have to worry about getting their payments. It's very predictable. Payment is one side. They get more business with us. They make more revenue with us after they work with us than without us. So everyone is happy in this ecosystem.
Actually, trust is the key operating word. Like when I speak to some suppliers of Zetwerk or in B2B marketplaces, I think you get one chance to work with the supplier the first time, and if you don't pay him on time, he has a mental image, right? When you, like for example, when any of us as consumers go to buy in a supermarket, we don't have any distrust of the seller, right? The max you will find is sometimes you bought something which had expiry on it and you said, okay, why was it stocked? And he will take it back. So they're fine. But majority of time you are buying an established product. That person is just a distributor. You just go pick it up from a shop and pay him some money.
Yes.
Only place where you will have discomfort is if you're standing in the line and he doesn't give you attention, doesn't talk to you nicely, right? But in B2B, I think you have to repeatedly keep on every transaction. Trust is important, right? First is, and I think all B2B marketplaces go through this phase. They onboard a large number of suppliers. I don't think any supplier says no to incoming business. So when some B2B marketplace comes and says, I added 100 more suppliers, 200 more suppliers, founders might feel that more and more suppliers are willing to work with me. But then you ask how many were active, how many are repeating, how many are consistently working with you. That becomes one. And I think every B2B marketplace goes through the exercise of categorizing suppliers into gold, silver, platinum, and what quality what is. And then you kind of incentivize them from how do I make the silver supplier into gold? Because he's bad at, let's say, some raw material procurement or he's not doing all the business properly with us. Why? So you just, then actually Zetwerk maybe and other B2B marketplaces do a lot of on-ground events with suppliers. You have to sit with them, you have to talk to them. So it's not done on just.
And it goes on the customer side also. Yeah. Like at least in our industry, which is somewhat technical in nature, you get the customer will give you one chance only. Like you're working with a Tata, they want some products made. Yeah, you have one chance. If you don't do it well the first time, you're out. And because in their mind, they're comparing you to anybody else they've worked with before. And this is their status quo experience. They're already working with bad suppliers. Why do they want another bad company, right? So they're willing to give you one chance because, of course, you're new and others, but you will get one chance only. And if you have to meet the customer experience, you have to solve the problems, stitch it down all the way down to the last mile, which is the supplier side. Yeah, there's all these legacy issues. You can complain about it, but that is the reality of the market you're in. And then you just find ways to solve for it. So first step is identifying why things are broken and what is causing the status quo to be in a certain way.
And that's where I think your digital and software products that you created, they are quite sticky, like for both your suppliers and and buyers in that sense, right? They see value in you because of that.
I mean, they see it. The ultimate, from a customer's point of view, they're looking for reliability. They're looking for peace of mind. Once they give an order to Zetwerk, they don't want to think about it. They want to spend their time thinking about other parts of their business that are broken, right? And that reliability can come through software. The reliability can come through, professionalism. The reliability can come through just being consistent time and again. And the answer is you have to do all of it. You can't do just 1 out of 3 and say that, this is good enough. It's not good enough.
And on a final note, I also picked things about the consumer or customer side of business that you're doing now as part of the marketplace, right?
That's a reveal. That's a reveal. Not a lot of people know about Zetwerk.
Yeah.
So
I found that really, really interesting. If you could spend the final a minute or two on why and how and.
Yeah, it actually happened during COVID.
Maybe start with the what. What is it that people don't know about Zetwerk?
Yeah, I mean, almost 20-30% of our revenues come from consumer products, which is basically we're selling to either a brand or a retailer. A retailer can be an online or an offline retailer. They have a lot of private label use cases, or there can be brands. And these are brands you would have all heard of. Again, can't name a lot of them, but these are all brands in apparel, in electronics. We talk about smartwatches, Bluetooth headsets.
I'm wearing one of them.
Yeah, you're wearing one. It may have been made by us. So we work with most of the top brands in India, at least in that Bluetooth headset space. There are 20 plus brands we work with, and private label companies. And the key problem we are trying to solve for these companies was they were all buying from China. And around 2 years back, regulation became pretty active that we want to incentivize production in India. So a lot of these brands are looking to move production to India. But there is a cold start issue. The reason they were importing was because there was no supply in India, right? And you want to localize, but it's not as easy. So we partner with all of these brands to help them move production from wherever they were importing from to India. In fact, we had an interesting incident. Like around few months back, we had a customer from the US visit us. There was a customer in renewable energy. We supply a lot of these below a solar panel. There are these steel structures which hold the frames. Yeah. So there was a customer who was looking to buy that product from us. They had come down to negotiate the final deal, and they had some off time, so they went to a mall in Bangalore and they wanted to pick up a T-shirt, and they went to a brand which is one of our customers, and the T-shirt label said manufactured by Zetwerk, and it was like his mind was blown. Like, hey, I'm here to buy these solar panel structures, and you also do T-shirts. Like, that was a good moment for us. It just showcases the range we do as a company. Yeah.
Frank, this is fascinating. A lot of time we get stuck with defining, B2B marketplace, B2C markets, but here is a real enterprise building in that sense, right?
No, that is all credit to the entrepreneur. See, when we invested, my mindset was steel fabrication. Right, that's it.
Imagine where you have
now
come.
They are in probably some 25 odd different categories: consumer electronics, fashion, solar, water, like so many things they're doing. I think it's all. I think the experiment, feedback loops, iterate, like all of those things are the company culture which they have. Right, I think that's what. And constantly, like, they've also done 3D printing, aircraft parts, like so many. Let's try, and I think that decentralization, that's all. I think that's what makes Zetwerk tick, right? So
another thing you can relate to, like this, if you've sat in an airplane, when you said there's a plastic tray on which your food is kept, we make those parts for a lot of aircraft companies. In the overhead luggage compartment, those are all plastic products. So a lot of things we do are present around us, and
This is amazing, and I think I at least I smell a real enterprise. Like I forget the unicorn and all that debate, but I do see building blocks of what could potentially become a large enterprise. And Godspeed and to you, Amrit, and
thanks.
Keep building that. Prank, this was really insightful.
Thank you. Thank you, Pankaj, for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.